results have been declared after Parliament voted to elect the next president, and Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was the acting president, has been elected as the new president of Sri Lanka. This despite his unpopularity with the public. Remember, the public, after Gotabaya Rajapakasa fled the country, they continued protesting, saying they don't want Ranil Wickremesinghe as the acting president either. However, today he has won that election in Parliament, and he faces the task of leading the country out of this economic collapse, as well as restoring public order after months of mass protests. In fact, over 100 days of protests have taken place against Gotabaya Rajapakasa, who fled Sri Lanka and from Singapore, finally sending in his resignation. Now, Mr. Wickremesinghe, it was a three-way contest, and he roundly defeated rivals Dulus Alahepurama with 130 votes to 82 in that parliamentary vote that took place this morning. Let's go across to Shrija for more. And Shrija, this is something that was being expected, but at the same time an unpopular choice, at least among the protesting public.
Well, utter disbelief. Now, that is what the Sri Lankans would like to term it, because they at least had hopes till the last minute, because if you're really looking about 3 to 4 days ago, when the presidential race, when the names kept cropping up, you had at least 4 presidential candidates. That included Mr. Sajith Premadasa as well, the leader of the opposition, principal opposition, SJP in Sri Lanka. But eventually we saw, at the 11th hour, he said he's planning to back, he and his team, party members, are planning to back Mr. Dallas Alahapurama, who is the former journalist and also from the parent party, which is SLPP, the majoritarian party, the ruling party in Sri Lanka. But he's also known as the rebel leader as far as Dallas Alahapurama is concerned. So we see they all huddled up to ensure that they could keep Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe out of power. Now, despite all of that planning, what Mr. Sajith Premadasa, his team had planned, to also ensure unanimously support Mr. Dallas Alahapurama, this is to just increase the number of votes. We still go on to see that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe has emerged a clear winner. He's got a huge margin of nearly 134 votes. Now, that is very huge. And also, this is unexpected is what we understand at the moment, because if you see after Sajith Premadasa, he did officially talk about how he and his party intends to support Dallas Alahapurama. There were certain calculations and math that was being done, because as far as Ranil Wickremesinghe initially is concerned, the numbers were at least he could manage easily about 90, at least about 90, 85 to 90. And as far as Dallas Alahapurama is concerned, he could get from the SJP, which is the opposition, and some from the SLPP, the parent party itself, because there is dissidence within the party, and then other opposition parties, TNA as well. Now, keeping all that numbers together, we still could see that there was the competition was neck to neck, that is Dallas and also Mr. Ranil. But what really happened during the voting was what we understand from our sources, that clearly cross-voting has taken place, and that is primarily from the SJB itself, from Sajith's party itself. So cross-voting has taken place with allowing Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe to become the president of Sri Lanka. Now, yes, he has taken over. He's a very, very unpopular name, because if you're looking at the sequence of events just about last week and taking from July 9th onward, we went on to see how, the protesters stormed, especially the presidential palace. They went on to storm, including Ranil Wickremesinghe's house as well, burning it down. And eventually Ranil Wickremesinghe talking about how, yes, he's, offering to quit from the post of Prime Minister. But eventually we went on to see how the protesters and Sri Lankans managed to ensure that even Gotabaya stepped down from his position. But clearly that did not happen. Instead, he fled to Singapore. And after which Ranil Wickremesinghe Wickeremesinghe had to become the acting president. So at least there were slight hopes. Clearly people were hanging on to the fact that yes, now SJB can support Mr. Dulles Alahaperima, and Dulles can also secure some of the votes from his own, in terms of the parent party and his own members who wanted to really vote for him, and other opposition parties. So clearly, when the voting began, that's not really the story what we or at least Sri Lankans expected.